Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English. Today's lesson is called Contrasting Ideas. Look at these two sentences. Number 1, I don't like Claire. And 2, I went to her birthday party. Sentence 2 is very surprising. Why? Well, because of sentence 1. I don't like Claire, but I went to her birthday party. That's very surprising, very surprising. And we call sentence 1 and 2 contrasting ideas. Okay, so they represent contrasting ideas. And we can connect contrasting ideas with the word although. Although. So we can connect these two sentences, we make one sentence and we use although. So we can say this: although I don't like Claire, I went to her birthday party. Okay, so we're connecting these two contrasting ideas. This is surprising. This is a big surprise. Why? Because of this. Okay, and notice this is one sentence. We have the full stop at the end, and in the middle we have a comma. Okay, now there are more words to connect contrasting ideas. There is not only although. We can connect contrasting ideas with although, even though, despite, and in spite of. And we use these words with different structures, different types of structures. And in this lesson you will learn those structures. So you will learn how to use all of these words. Let's start with although and even though. Well, we use a subject and verb with although and even though. Example: although I work well with my colleague, we are not close friends. So this is a surprise. This is surprising because of this. Okay, and we can see although, subject and verb. Okay, so although I work well with my colleague, we are not close friends. Now, even though, it's the same meaning. It's the same meaning and the same structure, but it is slightly stronger. And we use it when the contrasting ideas are very surprising, particularly surprising. Example: even though John is short, he's a good basketball player. So this is very, very, very surprising because of this. Okay, he's short, and so it's very, very surprising that he is a good basketball player. And notice the form. We have a subject and a verb. Even though John is short, comma, he's a good basketball player. Okay, so though, although, and even though. Let's look at some more examples. Although he doesn't speak Spanish, he would like to live in Spain. So this is surprising because of this. Okay, although, and here we have a negative. So we have the subject and the verb in the negative. Although he doesn't speak Spanish. Claire passed the exam even though she hadn't revised. Even though she hadn't revised. So this part is surprising because of this. Okay, and we're very surprised about this because of this. Okay, it's very, very surprising that she passed, even though she hadn't revised. And so yes, here again we have subject and the verb in the negative. And this is the past perfect in the negative. She hadn't revised. Okay? Now, what about though? Well, there are two ways to use though. The first way is exactly the same as although. Okay, it's exactly the same meaning and form. Example. So we can say, although I like video games, I rarely play them. Or you can say, though I like video games, I rarely play them. These two are exactly the same meaning and form. Okay, so it's a personal choice for you. I personally prefer although. Now, method 2 is different, and we place it at the end of the second phrase. So we're going to place it here. I like video games. I rarely play them though. I like video games. I rarely play them though. And this time we have created two separate sentences. Okay? So this is surprising because of this. And we put though right at the end. And this way number 2, at the end of the second phrase, this is common in spoken English. You will hear this a lot when people are speaking. Okay? So let's look at some more examples of though. Though houses are cheap in the countryside, I hate living there. So this is surprising because of this. So it is surprising that I hate living there because the houses are so cheap. And this we are using though in exactly the same way as although. And we have a noun and the subject and the verb. Now let's look at the other way number 2. And this is spoken English. Houses are cheap in the countryside. I hate living there though. I hate living there though. So again, this is surprising because of this. And notice we have created two separate sentences. Full stop and an exclamation mark here. Okay? So that is though. Now, let's look at despite and in spite of. And again, we have two uses, two different ways of using despite and in spite of. Use number 1 is with a noun phrase. So we can say despite or in spite of, the meaning is the same, followed by a noun phrase. Example. Despite her headache, Jane studied for the test. So despite followed by a noun phrase. So here it is, her headache, Jane studied for the test. Okay, so this is surprising because of this. Okay, and notice the difference. Remember before we had although and then we had a subject and a verb. Well, we do not have that here. Here we have the noun phrase. Okay, so her headache. She walked to work in spite of the rain. She walked to work in spite of the rain. Okay, so this is surprising because of this, because of the weather. In spite of, followed by the noun phrase, the rain. Okay? Let's look at some more examples with a noun phrase. So remember, this is still use number 1. Again, this is just a reminder of the form. And here is the example. Despite feeling ill, Mark tried to work. So this is surprising. Okay, it's a surprise that he tried to work because of this. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, well, feeling, that's not a noun, that's a verb. Well, it's actually a gerund. It's a gerund. And a gerund is the ing form of a verb when it is acting as a noun. So this is a verb, but it's acting as a noun, despite feeling ill. So this is in fact a noun phrase. Okay, so this is a surprise because of this. Okay, so there's no subject, there's no verb here. And this is a good example. In spite of the bad food in the hotel, we had a good holiday. We had a good holiday. So this is a surprise, surprising that we think we had a good holiday because the food was bad. Okay, in spite of the bad food, which is the noun phrase. Okay, so again, despite and in spite of, it's the same meaning, and they're both followed by a noun phrase. So we could say here, we could say, despite the bad food in the hotel, we had a good holiday. And here we could also say, in spite of feeling ill, Mark tried to work. It's exactly the same. Now let's look at use 2, method 2, with despite and in spite of. This is slightly more complicated, but it is very, very common. So it is important that you understand and learn this. Okay, we can add these words. We can say despite the fact that, or we can say in spite of the fact that. So we add these three words, the fact that, to despite or in spite of. And this time, it is no longer a noun phrase. Now we can use a subject and verb. Okay, so do you recognize this? This is now similar to although, though, and even though. We have transformed it to work like although and though and even though. So with this structure, we can use a subject and a verb. Let me show you. Despite the fact that the weather was nice, they watched TV all day. Okay, so this is the surprise. This is surprising because of this. It's surprising that they wanted to watch TV all day because the weather was so nice outside. Despite the fact that the weather was nice. So this is the same as saying, we could also say, although the weather was nice, or even though the weather was nice, they watched TV all day. It's the same. And we could also say, in spite of the fact that the weather was nice, they watched TV all day. Okay, these two are the same. And I know it looks long and complicated, but believe me, this is very, very common in English. Okay, despite the fact that, in spite of the fact that, if you listen very carefully to English conversations and even on the news, you will hear this a lot. And let's look at some more examples. So here is the structure. And here is an example. Despite the fact that she sees him every day, she doesn't know his name. So despite the fact that, and then we have the subject and the verb. Okay, so this is surprising. She doesn't know his name. That's a surprise because she sees him every day. And we can also say, in spite of the fact that she sees him every day, she doesn't know his name. So again, we're using in spite of the fact that with a subject and a verb. And of course, we could also use although to express the same idea. We could say, although she sees him every day, she doesn't know his name. Okay? So, just before the end, do you like my lessons? And would you like to make a small donation? And if yes, then please click on the Super Thanks button below this video and follow the instructions. So that will encourage me to continue making videos. I've been making videos now since 2013, over 360 videos. So I would really appreciate it if you would make a small donation. Thank you very much. And that is the end of the video. If you're preparing for the IELTS exam, click here for information about our course.